Hi, I'm Chandler Fleming, and I'm the owner and lead therapist at Clarkston Lighthouse Counseling. This is my spouse, Victoria.
Hi there, welcome to our show today, Clarkston Lighthouse Guidance, and today we're going to talk about sleep hygiene. And sleep, as we're looking at different topics to talk about, came up just because it seems like there's a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a sleep crisis out there where we have people who aren't valuing it at all, and maybe people who are fixating on it.
Sure.
And getting a negative impact. So yeah, we definitely wanted to talk about sleep hygiene and the importance of sleep.
Yeah. And sleep is hugely important. We know that with a lot of mental illness, depression, anxiety, bipolar, all those disorders affect sleep. And it's kind of a chicken and egg situation because lack of sleep can bring on anxiety and depression can bring on, and anxiety can bring on lack of sleep.
Yeah,
so
for sure. And it is amazing how sleep is just so important in really every area of our life. It's important for that cognitive functioning.
Sure.
It's important for the emotional well-being of a person, as you were saying, with anxiety and depression, as well as for the physical health. So it is super important as we look at it. It seems like sometimes there's a big emphasis on exercise, on eating right, on, making sure we take care of ourselves. But sleep, I don't know, not always top on the list for people.
And I think one of the difficulties is people have a hard time assessing themselves. I knew a lady who had sleep apnea for years and years and never really wanted to go to the doctor to get it taken care of. Mm-hmm. And she was mad because she went and she was doing so much better after getting on a CPAP machine and be able to sleep. And it was interesting because she was sleeping about 7 hours a night and just feeling really good. Mm-hmm. And she went back to her sleep doctor and he said, I really want you to go for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. She goes, I don't want to sleep at it. I'm busy.
I got a lot to do.
You got a lot to do. But she actually, was a good patient, went back, got that extra hour of sleep, got 8 solid hours. And she goes, I was amazed at just even the difference between 7 hours and 8 hours. So sleep is oftentimes really undervalued.
Now you brought up sleep apnea. What is sleep apnea?
Sleep apnea is a disturbance of breathing that some people, when they fall asleep, they forget to breathe. It kind of reminds me of the funny aerobic instructor. Don't forget to breathe. But
oh yeah, that's actually my story, and I still so remember that.
Right.
Being in an aerobics class back in college, and the instructor saying, "Don't forget to breathe," and I thought, yeah, whatever. And then there I was, as I was trying to follow all those moves, thinking, I'm holding my breath,
Right.
And that really is what happens with someone with sleep apnea. They're not breathing, and then they actually can wake up because of that. The body demanding that oxygen and waking up, and that's the reason CPAP. And thankfully, with new technology, those machines are getting smaller and smaller and more quiet. But gosh, in the days of old, they were huge.
Sure. And there's definitely physical characteristics of people who tend to have apnea. Being overweight, having a thick neck, snoring is oftentimes a sign. Mm-hmm. I know of somebody that they were taking a nap and I was counting how long it was in between breathing, and they got up to like 29, 30 seconds, and then it was and
that's a lot.
Yeah, and tried to explain to them that they had sleep apnea. They didn't believe me, but they did.
And sleep apnea is not the only way that sleep can be disrupted. The reality is a lot of people are not valuing sleep at all, and they're valuing things like working longer and earning more money, technology, watching the television, playing the game, seeing that movie. They're valuing just a lot of different things over sleep because there is oftentimes almost even a brag of, I only get 4 hours of sleep every night and look how much I get done. And there is a certain beating of the chest of like somehow I'm superhero if I can get by with very little sleep. And then like I said, with technology, with television and all the lights, it's just so easy to keep putting it off and to value things over sleep. So even if you're not someone with sleep apnea, you may very well be a person who does not have a healthy sleep hygiene.
Right. And that's for the teenagers out there too. So often I have parents come in and really try to explain to their teenage kids the importance of sleep. And this is a little outdated, sorry guys, but but Mom, I got to play WoW. My team's counting on me. We're only going to play till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm okay. I'm fine. Especially with teenagers and video games and young adults, they really have abandoned sleep for things that seem to be fun, but but the price is way too high.
Absolutely. And what's happening is we're not valuing sleep, and as we're not having a good sleep hygiene, we're messing with that circadian rhythm. We're messing with the body's natural sleep-wake cycle, that natural body clock. And we're not listening to the yawns. We're not listening to our body when it's saying, I am so desperately sleepy and ready to go to sleep. You know, that rhythm is very much based on the brain's response to light. So there are a lot of studies that are looking at how, as the electric light has come in, that people's natural circadian rhythm has definitely been negatively impacted.
Right.
And, you know, but it's also just so important for us to recognize that each of us, our circadian rhythm may not be exactly the same. You know, you do have morning people, night people, but we've got to learn to recognize that we do have a circadian rhythm and that we need to listen to it.
Right. And our circadian rhythm is trainable to some degree. I mean, there's those natural set points, but if you're sleeping 3 hours in the afternoon, you're going to mess with your circadian rhythm.
Absolutely, which is part of that sleep hygiene, is coming up with a regular, consistent way of dealing with your sleep each day.
Right.
You know, just like we do with our diet. When you go to the grocery store, you have a grocery list and you buy these certain things because you want to eat a certain way. And the same is true for us with our sleep, is we really have to look at what may be interrupting my sleep. What am I doing? Am I not listening to myself? And make sure that we give it the attention that it needs. Part of recognizing the importance of sleep is also understanding sleep, that whole REM and non-REM sleep. Tell us about the REM and non-REM.
You know, there's basically those 4 stages of sleep. 3 of them are non-REM, which is rapid eye movement. So it's kind of wild when people get into a deep sleep where they're dreaming the most, is their eyes are actually fluttering back and forth. And it's kind of cool because in order for you not to act out on those dreams, a lot of people are like temporarily paralyzed. Their body kind of shuts down, the nervous system shuts down, the extremities. So, you know, if you're beating up your wife in your sleep and you're saying it was just a dream, you're probably lying.
That's true, because the body does have that natural protective ability of it's called sleep paralysis. And it's where those muscles cannot move for exactly that reason.
People throughout the night kind of cycle through different patterns. Non-REM sleep 1, stage 1 sleep, usually 2 to 7 minutes.
It's just that wonderful falling asleep. And you know, like you said, anywhere 5 to 10 minutes is very common for people, and it's a very light, it's very easy to interrupt, you know, but it's that light, it's that falling asleep. The second stage in the non-REM is that light sleep. And that's where the heart rate is beginning to slow, the body temperature is dropping, and your body is just doing that wonderful relaxing that it needs to do to go into the deep sleep.
Right.
And then go ahead.
And part of the way we know about these sleep patterns is really studying brainwaves. That there's distinct patterns of brainwaves based on each of the patterns of sleep.
And it was super interesting. Part of the reason sleep got a lot of attention is when they noticed that infants had a larger time spent in REM. I think it's like up to 50%. And so when scientists saw, gosh, even infants are engaged in REM, and sleep is one of the most studied and most mysterious of the physiological sciences out there, but they're like, what is up with this? And it turns out that the part of the brain involved in REM is a learning part of the brain, and that the reason infants, at least what they're theorizing, you know, because you can't ask that infant, gee, why, is that baby is learning and taking in so much information that the brain needs to engage in a lot more REM to be able to process it, and for the brain to kind of keep up with everything that's going on. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that REM part and the non-REM, but then once you get into that deep sleep, so we've had the falling asleep, we've had the light sleep, now we're into the deep sleep, and that deep sleep is where the body is doing so much reparative work. This is where there's tissue repair, there's bone growth. The immune system has an opportunity to really boost itself up and to do better, you know, to thrive better. And so that deep sleep, and then you're cycling through that non-REM and the REM, and the studies show that the REM cycle through this, each, as it is cycling through, gets longer. With the longest stage, if we're sleeping well, being about an hour.
Right. And that's important to know too, because a lot of people with medication and sleep aids, they don't recognize that it's not one cycle, that people go to a deep sleep and REM sleep, and then they come back through, and they might go to a lighter stage, maybe just a stage 2 non-REM sleep. And so lots and lots of people I know, well, I can fall asleep, but I'm up every night at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's when they're really coming back out of a deep sleep to a lighter sleep that's where the disturbance is.
And that's where we really want to talk about that fixation, because what can happen is a person can transition back into that lighter sleep, open their eye and see it's 2:30 in the morning, and have this false sense of I'm not sleeping well, and then report, and then they begin to worry, I'm a bad sleeper.
You know, it's really tough as a therapist because a lot of work with sleep labs where they actually put you on equipment and monitor your breathing, make sure you don't have apnea, look at your brainwaves. A lot of those places have cameras on them. And there was a kind of a fast motion picture of a guy who was just sleeping there, super sleep, really, really stiff, doesn't move, doesn't cross over at all, is just really, really stiff the whole night. In the last 3 or 4 minutes of sleep before he awakes, he tosses and turns. And they ask him in the morning, how'd you sleep? I tossed and turned all night. There's other pictures, and this is even more common, that the person will wake up, look around, and then go right back to sleep, and their brainwaves go into a deep sleep 5-6 minutes later, and they have a long period of deep sleep, and then they come back out, look around, and you ask them, I didn't sleep all night. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of times with clients, because you experience it, you think it's real.
Right.
That you really think, no, really, I sleep all the time, or I'm not sleeping well, or things along those lines. So one practical solution we frequently give is take the clock out of your room.
And don't check the phone. Just don't check.
The phone. Don't check. Because a lot of times you can check really, really quick and then believe that you're up for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. And so really what you want to look at in developing a sleep habit is, how am I feeling during the day? Some indicators of if you're really sleeping well or not is not whether you looked at the clock or if you tossed and turned it all at the very end. It's that I'm able to wake up and I feel refreshed. That as the day goes on, I just have the circadian rhythm shows that people very often, sometime between 1 and 3, have another lull, and that's a natural part of the body's clock. Some of it can be that you had lunch and now the body, processing that food, but that there's a lull, and that's normal. And I think some of us panic and think that's not. So we need to understand REM and non-REM. We need to understand that internal clock and recognize what's normal and what's not normal, and then just recognize, naturally we're supposed to get tireder by that clock as the day wears on, as the sun is setting. Because again, it's based on light.
Sure.
Now we've tricked ourselves some with all of our artificial lights and thinking that day is much longer than it actually is. But gauge it by how you feel, not by whether or not you check the clock.
Right.
And throw the clock out if it's messing you up.
Throw the clock out and be willing to understand that there's a possibility that you are sleeping longer than you think you are.
So again, we want to bring this to your attention because there is cognitive impairment. The studies are indicating that a person who is not sleeping well, their memory is impacted. They misplace things more often. They are not able to focus and maintain that cognitive attention span the way that they used to be able to. Learning is affected, again, hitting on those teenagers.
Yes,
learning is
that's
affected.
What I was thinking.
That REM is part of that learning recovery, that part of the brain that learns. Reaction times are delayed. They just are. Mood is impacted. And back to the reaction time being delayed, there are actually studies that very clearly show that a sleep impaired person is as dangerous on the road as a drunk driver.
Right. And it's kind of comparison of how sleep impaired and how drunk.
Right, right, absolutely. So we are in no way saying, you have an excuse to become a drunk driver.
Right.
Not at all. But I know even Mythbusters actually did the studies The sleep deprived person, it was more the monotonous. It was that just nonstop, same old, that they were more at risk. And the drunk driver did far less well in that, like in-town driving, where you're having to be reactive to yields and stops and lights and stuff like that. And the reality is, you're doing far more of that kind of driving drunk than you are the monotonous.
Right,
You know, so you need to be very aware. So, like we said, that sleep does affect the cognitive. If you are someone who's like, I just feel like I keep misplacing my keys. I don't know where I laid my glasses. I don't know where my phone is. I can't seem to keep my focus. I can't seem to keep my attention. I'm feeling more irritable. Then a place to look is definitely, am I sleeping well?
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. As we look at how to sleep better, what are some suggestions?
You know, I mean, first of all, how do we sleep better is develop that pattern, value it, make it a priority, look at different things, look at where's your exercise, how much caffeine are you taking in. You know, I mean, this is kind of a what I call a duh, but I've had people come in and they say, I just can't sleep at night. Well, let's look at your caffeine use. Well, because I don't sleep, I drink 5 Mountain Dews a day. Well, you know, again, we get into these chicken and egg things where it's very important to look at things like diet and exercise and caffeine use and alcohol and drug use and things along those lines.
And I appreciate that you're saying that, recognizing that sleep patterns can change with age. There's a lot of belief that the older you get, the less sleep you need. That's been disproved.
Sure.
What happens is the older we get, the less able sometimes we are to sleep well. But using the caffeine, you know, start recognizing if I drink coffee after 3 o'clock, it does impact my sleep. For some people, it may be if I drink coffee after noon, but know when that stop time is. The same is true. A lot of people will wait to drink all of their fluids late, and then their body is insisting they get up multiple times during the night to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
Spread your drinking of your water throughout the day and recognize that there's a stop time. There's a time that you don't continue to drink fluids, and having a big meal late sabotages sleep because now the body is in full throttle working and processing that food and is stimulating a whole different part of the body than what you want to stimulate to be able to go to sleep. And we had number one, value sleep.
Sure.
And I think, again, we need to recognize that it does affect us cognitively, physically, as well as our mood. People who don't get enough sleep are more irritable. They're not able to process stress as well. They do have a tendency towards depression and anxiety, and it becomes a cycle that can possibly be significantly broken by making sleep a priority.
Sure.
You know, another part of that is be consistent. And I find that in my own sleep hygiene that I'm very bad about the consistency. I'll have a few nights maybe of good sleep, and then I kind of think, hey, I've got this licked. It doesn't matter if I watch TV till late, if I'm on my tablet, if I don't know, choose to eat something, and then I wonder why I can't sleep again, or I have that caffeine.
You know, in some people, it's a process of getting there. So I have them start with, okay, what are the 12 hours you're not going to sleep, and what are 12 hours you're going to sleep? So some people, it's 10 to 10. From 10 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock in the morning, it's okay to sleep. But I have people that their sleep pattern is so broken that they don't sleep well at night, so they take a 3-hour nap in the afternoon. And then, so in some people, you got to work the other direction. Sometimes it's, you know what? From 8 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock in the morning you can sleep, but outside those times you don't. So have a plan, be consistent with that plan and start shaping it.
And I know some people are probably already hearing that and thinking, I don't have time to sleep that much, and it's really not 12. Studies really do show 7, 8, 8.5 hours is
But I'm
more
really
than
talking
enough.
about having times that you don't nap.
Right,
That really from 10 in the morning till 8 at night, if you're a person who's sleeping 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon and can't sleep at night, you got to give up your nap. And sometimes it's difficult to do. So that requires you to say, okay, I will not go to sleep until 8 o'clock.
Right. And what I would say just about that, giving it that priority is for the people who are saying, I don't have that time, do appreciate by not giving yourself that time, you are not accomplishing as much as you could while you are awake.
Sure.
You're just not. Obesity rates increase because people will very often eat to supplement that energy
Right. And there's
that they did
the whole
not
cortisol
get.
thing too. So.
Right. And explain that.
Well, that our body produces cortisol, and cortisol is associated with appetite and fat and not burning fat. So sleep-deprived people tend to produce more cortisol, so their body, not only is it craving more calories, it's holding on to those calories much, much longer.
Which they're also now linking that deficit in sleep is being associated with type 2 diabetes. It is being connected with cancer, which is really sad because they had already done studies on increased cancer rates among people who do that shift work and the negativity of that kind of shift work and how it impacts the sleep. Well, now they're showing that to be true among people as a whole because the studies are showing in the last 50 years, people's average sleep time has decreased anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. So whereas maybe 8 was the norm, now people are shooting more for 6. For those who only slept 7, now they're only getting 5, but the body requires a certain amount of time to be able to repair.
Right. The next subject along those lines too is in having an effective sleep plan is to seriously address alcohol and marijuana. I know lots of people who take a couple drinks to go to bed to fall asleep, and they don't recognize that 4 to 6 hours later there could be a major rebound effect. That when your body kind of gets done with the alcohol, that their anxiety level and their irritability level is much, much higher. So it may be good to help you fall asleep, but when you start to cycle out of the deep sleep into a lesser level of sleep, you're much, much more likely to wake up and stay up.
And it's one of those where you have to value the sleep so that you can stop having that bedtime drink.
Right.
That seems like it's so helpful in making you feel sleepy, but it's not positively impacting that sleep cycle.
Right. The same thing is true with marijuana. I have lots of people who are smoking marijuana to help them sleep, and a large number of them are having to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, smoke another joint, or use more marijuana to stay asleep. And it's probably the #1 side effect that I see in people who are quitting marijuana is that they can't sleep at night. Their sleep pattern was broken, but they were kind of treating it with fall asleep with marijuana, stay asleep with more marijuana. Giving up marijuana. So a lot of kids, I don't use that much, whatever, and they get arrested and put on probation, and sleep is like a major, major consequence of their marijuana use.
And the other part, and this is for all of us, technology. All of the screens need to go off at least 30 minutes before you go to bed, preferably up to 2 hours before you go to bed. Do not check your email before you go to bed. Stress levels increase. People do not sleep as well. In fact, there is a recent study that people who, as they go to bed, with their spouse share the best news of the day. Hey, guess what? Actually slept better and woke up in better mood. Checking your email and seeing that your boss is demanding something of you in the morning is not the best news of the day and is going to negatively affect your sleep. Consistently, science is showing that the light of the screens, even e-readers, so if you love to read, they're really encouraging now. Scientists are encouraging, sleep specialists are encouraging, read a book. Just read a book. There's something about, the brain processes e-reading differently than the typed word on a page, an actual page that you turn. And so we've got to turn off our screens and allow the melatonin, which is the natural chemical of the body that tells you I'm sleepy and allows you to sleep well. It's just negatively impacted by that technology.
So we really appreciate you watching the show today. And as always, we're available. If you have questions, feel free to email us or reach out to us on Facebook. And thank you so much for watching our show today.
So, and do just remember, sleep is important. If you are someone who is significantly struggling, get help. There's definitely help available. There are some wonderful, I know some people who utilize melatonin, which is natural, but they'll take melatonin to help reset that circadian rhythm, reset their sleep clock. But please take it seriously and take care of yourself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
The views expressed in this show are for general educational purposes only and do not constitute professional advice on any subject matter, nor do they necessarily reflect the views or opinions of its guests or of Independence Television. If mental health assistance is needed, please seek professional licensed treatment.